Shooting wrecks a sleepy town in the USA. The actual crime is eclipsed by the fact that the culprit was an avid fan of video games and played violent games all the time. The world is divided as an argument rages. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? There have been so many reports on video game violence that it is hard to separate fact from fiction. Now, this report tries to settle that argument once and for all.
Before anyone jumps to assumptions though, let's look at the stats. For every 10 minutes of playing video games, boys between the ages of 8 and 18 will see between 2 and 124 acts of violence. And in 98% of games, the acts that the player commits are unpunished. In more than half of video games, perpetrators of violence are rewarded. What do adults think about this? We spoke to Mrs. Maudsley, a parent and teacher at our school JCOS, to find out.
So, what are your opinions on violence in video games?
Okay, I have very mixed opinions on violence in video games. I think depending on the nature of the game, it can be okay, depending on the nature of the violence.
Do you agree with children admiring people in video games?
Not really, no. I think that video games are all totally fictional, and a lot of the graphics on video games are taken completely out of proportion. I don't think they're true to life and I don't think they're realistic. So to admire somebody that is a fictional character, if it was my children, I wouldn't be happy about doing it.
Spoke to the former editor of tech magazine Wired, David Baker, to get his opinion.
When something terrible happens, we always want to look for a cause because that's reassuring. If we can work out why it's happened, our world feels safer. And video games are often the target of this.
We've seen the stats and we've seen two opinions. But what do the children think of these arguments? We spoke to Ryan, student at JCOS. Do you think that video games are too violent?
I think that some are too lifelike in the way they represent the game, which can influence some people. However, I think that okay if you are sure in yourself that you know it's definitely not real.
Do you think video games affect violence? From parents to students to fellow journalists, we have seen many viewpoints, but unfortunately, no matter how sure we may be, there will always be different opinions, and at the end of the day, it's up to you. Zach and Lucas, BBC School Report.